Okay. Hi everybody. Welcome to our Tufts check-in. I think this is week 5 or 6. The week number doesn't really matter. But we've got some potential respondents for your initial user research. So Kate has agreed to join us today. We can talk a little bit about them. Probably, well, I guess we'll see. But th this recording will probably end up needing to stay private if we're going to talk about this stuff, although all the PII on them was expunged. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Cool. So for the spreadsheet right now, does it have everybody yet? I know you mentioned there were a couple more coming in.
So I checked to see if there would be any more this morning, and there weren't. So there should be 27 in there. I think about half of them user interview marked as qualified, and the other half they marked as unqualified.
Uh-huh.
So if you want, we can look at the sheet together, and just kind of you can kind of mark which ones you want to do. Um, we in user interviews, when you mark the status of a respondent as approved, then it will send them an email inviting them to set up a time. So we don't want to approve anybody until you know you want to talk to that person.
Okay, sounds good. Um, I guess the way of approaching this is we talked about how right now, um, our research is still very broad, like on a platform level kind of a problem that we identified, and we really wanted to find specific moments of friction through these interviews and hopefully find a common moment that we can propose design solutions for. So we wanted the interviews to focus more on, I guess, tasks that they can perform, which I think we can talk about the interview guide more today too, but looking at these respondents, maybe finding like tasks that they all do will be helpful, like looking at which of the following tasks you're responsible for on a regular basis, and also looking at how familiar they are with GitLab.
Okay. Okay, if you want to share your screen, we could go through it together, or
Yeah, for sure.
sorry, what were you about to say, Kate?
I was just going to say, have you all decided on tasks that you'd like for them to have, or do you want to look at the responses and see what tasks come up the most as your baseline? Because that would just be two slightly different approaches. One where you're controlling it a little bit more, and the other where you're just kind of letting the pool of users available control what you want to look for.
We haven't specifically talked about that, but what I know is that we were planning on making a project with that by ourselves or with the help of you guys, but and then like sending them an invite through email to join.
But we did talk about having the specific task of creating a CI/CD pipeline for them, because that's where Katie's research kind of ended
Oh,
as well. But yeah, no, yeah, Rihanna's not wrong. We did talk about just setting up different projects and sending them an invitation.
Or like importing a project and not necessarily like making it from scratch, but
Yeah, cool. And should we just go over these people?
So just for your information, I think your questions start basically at the consent column, like N, column N and further to the right are your questions. All of the columns before that are like general data that user interviews has about the respondent. There actually were like way more, a lot of which are like weird market research things, like what kind of car they drive and stuff that did not seem relevant for this. But the ones I left in there seemed relevant, like what industry they work in, whether they work remote or in office, what they say their occupation is, what they say their company size is. Some of these are repeats of your questions, but I thought it would be good to get kind of like presumably like the like column G is something that person answered a long time ago, not relative to this specific uh survey. So it could be interesting to compare what they put there and like what they put when you ask them what their job title is, kind of thing. I also kept the time zone and countries in there because you can see, for example, one of the ones that it marked as unqualified said they were in Canada, but then their time zone was Kolkata.
Oh,
So I'm not exactly sure what the algorithm is that they use to mark people as unqualified, but I'm guessing that might have tripped something up. The ones that say they're qualified all look like they're, fine for that specifically.
hmm.
I can lend a little more insight into their like how they decide who's qualified and not. So when I create the project, there is qualifying and disqualifying criteria in the screener itself. So some of the questions where it was like immediately terminate will flag them as not qualified at a certain percentage, depending on how many things they got through the screener, which was a disqualifying answer, as well as the criteria that I put into the project at the start. So I put in United States and Canada as a requirement for country location. So it will show it to folks primarily in those countries, but it will flag it if their history shows that they're not in those countries. So we've done that a lot for pricing because people will say they're in whatever country, but it's not applicable to them. So that also then reduces down the percentage of qualified that they are, and it kind of highlights like, oh, they've answered your screener correctly, but take a look at their profile. It might not match.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. I've never actually had experience of screening for people before.
Really quick, I have a question. I know I was not there last week, so you guys might have covered it, but what platform are you using to recruit? Is this like on user interviews or like prolific or through your own database of like GitLab people? Like, how are you finding participants? Just so I know.
This particular round is through user interviews. We didn't use our own panel because majority of them would have more GitLab experience than what y'all are looking for. If we do not find everybody we need through this round, we will also open up the project on Respondent, which is similar to user interviews as a third-party recruitment platform.
Gotcha. Cool.
And if you're curious, I could show you. I'm not going to show you the list of these people because there is more information that includes like their name and contact information. But I could show you what the project looks like in user interviews.
I would be curious to see that. I've done like back end for some other like survey with like prolific kind of thing, but it's cool to see how it works for other
Yeah.
platforms.
I mean, it's not super exciting, but this is this is the project. This is all stuff that Kate set up, by the way. Um, so there's like, the source and then recruitment criteria. This is where she put in your survey. And then the reviewing is set to manual. I'm not really sure how automatic reviewing works in this platform. I haven't done it.
So
Um,
automatic is if we have like proper, it's kind of usually a bit longer screener and it's quite comprehensive qualifying, disqualifying criteria, and they get automatically sent an invite if they've qualified at the end or an invite to a survey, unmoderated test, interview, just to kind of keep people engaged.
hmm. And then also all of the research activity type is defined in here. So it's moderated and how many participants per session there are, how it's going to be conducted, and then this is where that Zoom link you provided us is plugged in. Um, and how many we're looking for, how we're going to compensate them for it. And then this is where like all of the new participants came in. All the ones we've got, I moved to the marked potential tab. I'm not going to show you that because it's got their information. But it kind of just looks like a table, and then I exported it to a CSV and put it in Google Sheets to share with you. And then there isn't anything in here yet. But I think they have basically kind of like a dovetail competitor that when they want you to upload your videos, and they do some analysis of it, and then you can kind of do some like affinity mapping and all that kind of stuff in here. I haven't used this feature, but that's what the platform is like. I think we're kind of basically just using it to recruit for this.
This is cool. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry. Back to your screen share, Ivy.
Sorry, I just couldn't find your screen share when I was sharing mine, so I just unshared for a moment.
Chad, I think you're the only one with edit access to the
Yes.
sheet.
So
Would
here's why.
you mind making the
Um,
S column like text wrapped so that they can see everything at once?
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Um,
that'd be great.
So the reason that's like that is that I put the full data into a Google sheet, and then I made a second tab in that same sheet with a query that only pulled the columns I wanted, and then I shared that. I imported that data to an intermediate sheet, and then I imported that data to this sheet, so that you can't access the original data. But it also means I needed to make this uneditable for everybody else, because basically there's only one cell that actually has any data in it, which is like B1. Uh, okay, and let's make this ramp. There you go.
I was thinking maybe we could prioritize people who said, I've never used GitLab before. I don't know what other people think. Because looking at the list of tasks they're responsible for, I think a lot of it does overlap.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I have a question. Should we move more people than we actually interview in case anything in like the time slot comes up unexpectedly, or should we just move the people that we know for sure we're going to interview?
I would say Mark, yes, for should interview for all the people who you think are a good fit. Because if you want to talk to 8 people, you should definitely approve more than 8.
Okay.
Because some of them might just like not be interested anymore, might not have any availability in any of the time that you have availability, all that kind of thing. So if you want to make sure you talk to at least 8 people, then I don't know, try like maybe 10 or 12, which is like almost as many as you have that are qualified, right? There's what, 15, I think, that were
Oh,
qualified.
yeah.
So I think the exercise is basically to see if there are any that are qualified that you should actually shake out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to highlight row 13. They should not have made it through, and I do not know why they did,
Oh,
because we can't incentivize them. They've marked themselves as government in their primary industry, which was set to be excluded. So I don't know how he got through,
well,
he or she. Um, But yeah, just a warning there that row 13 is gonna have to move to unqualified because we can't incentivize. Most folks
Well,
cannot incentivize government or nonprofit employees because it can be seen as a bribe, even if it's $20, if it's something from the swag store, it's prohibited.
I was also looking at row 15. It seems that they are also a web designer. I'm not sure if that makes them a little further from our target user, saying that they're a web developer slash web designer.
You could have a look at the tasks that they say that they do on a daily basis.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, it seems like they are our target user.
But I think it's like if you have enough participants, I think it's okay to have like your top 8 that you would invite. And then if some of those can't make it, then you go to like the next lot. So it's okay to put them in the like, number 9 to 12.
Okay.
Yeah, like Katie said, you should kind of go through the list, pick the people that you want to speak with, and then from that list, decide who is your kind of the ones you really want to speak with and the ones you're like, they're not quite ideal, but they'd be a good backup if we needed them.
So if you just look at the ones that said that they've never used GitLab before, how many does that get you?
Um,
like
10, I think.
10, yeah. So if you wanted to take that approach of like people who've never used it, then you could just, as a second step, look through the tasks of those 10 and make sure it's aligned with what you want to cover in your interview guide.
Are we missing a question? The
which one?
I'm just looking in user interviews, I'm going through it. I think there's an important one here that's missing, which is the last time your company introduced a new tool, how did you feel about
Oh
using it?
yeah. Wait a minute. Was that in the?
It was in the screener because I'm just
It
looking at
wasn't
it
the
now and
screener, but I'm looking at. So I have a CSV of all of their answers, and did I include that column or did they?
because I will say those answers look a little bit more interesting.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. There's two more columns that should have been included. I can go make that change now.
I think some of that information coupled with the whether they've used GitLab or not and the experience with CI/CD might make it more interesting for the participants that you decide you want to speak with.
Okay. You should have those additional columns now.
Cool.
And let
Thank
me,
you.
yeah, let me also wrap that last column.
if we're specifically asking for like CI/CD stuff, should we just go through and like mark somehow which ones mention it? I think it's like 4 to 6 all mention CI/CD as a part of their regular, oh, 4 to 7, and then um row 12 as well. Use it as a regular part of their work.
Yeah, and also 14, 15.
Oh, oh, I missed all of those below there. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I
awesome.
missed that at first too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, you can go ahead and like update the should interview column for them as you go because it's not final, right? So if you mark them as yes for now, we could always change that later.
I feel like I don't see a particular reason of marking anyone as no in the moment, just because I think they all sort of qualify or who we're looking for. I guess for the ones who wrote or who chose a little less for what they do on a daily basis.
Well, but they might just have a more specific job
Mm.
role.
Typically, with these kind of screeners, when you have a select all, people will think about, oh, I kind of do that and mark it. Um, I find sometimes the people who select the less items have thought a little bit more about the question and have read the actual answers and thought, do I actually do that as part of my job or do I not? Um, so that's why when we see somebody select all of them, we're a little bit more on the, do you actually do all those things or do you touch on them? Um, but as a piece of this, when you have selected the folks you want to speak to, user interviews has their LinkedIn accounts if they've provided it. So I will also see which ones have their LinkedIn accounts. Typically, those are the ones that are just more honest with them. It looks like almost all of them, bar maybe two, have their LinkedIn attached. But I will double check based on who you select if they're the ones in that list.
Interesting. I did not think of that. I didn't think they like choosing more meant they could have like not really put in thought into the question.
Yes, on some of our screeners, unfortunately, it does not work on platforms like User Interviews or Respondent. We will list out tasks and we'll ask them to select their top three or top five so that they actually have to review and select. But it's just unfortunately a limitation in third-party platforms. It's something we can do in Qualtrics, but not the survey providers.
I think maybe at this point we could prioritize people who mention CI/CD and also has never used GitLab before and have these people as our top choices and then rank other people below them.
Sure. So
Could
you
we
wanna
do,
you want to do a little bit of spreadsheet stuff? If you create a filtered view, you can basically get just those people, and then you'll see how many there are, and then it makes it easier for you to edit column A. So if you go to should be data. Is that where it's? Yeah, create a filtered view. And dismiss that. And then so for column S, if you click on the little green thing, no, not that one. Yeah. And then you can filter by condition, or you can, oh, yeah, actually that might work. Oh no, because that's gonna yeah, so you want text contains and then CI/CD. And then click OK. And then if you do a similar thing for that column, this one you should be able because it was like a multiple choice. You don't have to do the condition. You can just Yeah, if you click on the little clear, just yeah, and then yeah. So that should have filtered you down to just those. Oh, you might also want to go filter on column B, I think, is the qualified unqualified. No, C. So do that. Filter on column C for only qualified. Oh, okay, yeah, never mind. That's all you got. So this should be showing you just the ones that match. It looks like there's 4 rows.
Cool. Yeah. This is advanced um Google Sheets function.
Yeah, data crunching in Google Sheets is a bigger part of the job than you might think. So if you want to talk to these 4 people, then you can mark them as yes in column A. And then that should mean that there are 10 other um, respondents that are qualified that we haven't categorized one way or the other, right? Because one of them we said, oh, we can't talk to them because they're Canadian government. And the other one, then these 4, you're saying, yeah, they meet these criteria. So if you want to clear your filter, just click on that X at the right of the top filter bar. You don't have to save it. Um, so then you've got these other 10 that are say they're qualified, but you haven't marked them yet. Are there any criteria you want to think about that might make them someone you want to prioritize talking to? Or conversely, anything that you're like, oh, actually, maybe we shouldn't talk to people who this or that. I think probably your screener questions would have filtered out anything, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if we would want to first prioritize people who's never used it before or keep on looking for CI/CD because it could also be that they picked everything and they also picked CI/CD.
hmm.
And I guess even if they didn't pick it, we could still ask specific questions around it when we interview them.
So I was taking some notes when you were discussing this at the beginning of the call. What is the reason that you're trying to focus on people who are doing CI/CD work?
Just because it was like a next step in Katie's research as well. So we sort of thought that that might be a moment that we could look into, like when people are experiencing issues when they're trying to create their first CI/CD pipelines.
Hmm. Well, I guess the question then is if you want to choose between those 2 criteria for adding some people into your first round, prime choices, which is more important? Someone who has never touched the platform before versus someone who has a little bit of familiarity but not much, or someone who is interested in doing CI/CD work versus someone who that might not be relevant for them.
Just to add to that, you've also only allocated like a 30-minute interview. So you still have to go into an interview, you have to introduce yourself, um, do kind of the initial niceties, do your interview part, and if you're asking them to do something as well, like that does take time. And then you have to be able to allocate a few minutes at the end to actually end and wrap up the call, thank them for their participation, that kind of information. So, um, yeah, plus one to what Chad has said, you need to really kind of zero in on what those 30 minutes are going to be for you to kind of pick who these folks are going to be selected.
On that note, I guess, could we also talk about the interview guide a bit more? Because I feel like we're sort of still unclear about what we're actually looking for in these interviews. That's why we probably can't make up our minds right now.
Sure. Yeah, I do think that if someone is going to use CI/CD functionality, they're going to have been onboarded to the platform before they get to that. So if there are problems in getting onboarded to the platform, those will block them from getting to that further stage.
Mhm. I guess what we're thinking of is like how do we define the user journey? So what it meant for them to be onboarded. And I don't know, it might be that, like creating a pipeline successfully is the end of their journey to them. So that also is their initial onboarding process, I guess.
That's quite a lengthy onboarding process. Like that might represent their first couple of days or week in GitLab. So it's not to say that you couldn't do research on that, but then the scenario that you'd be presenting them with is like giving them a GitLab instance that's all set up on the pipeline page, probably, because pipelines are a very complicated thing and would probably take the majority of your 30 minutes.
Okay.
But do you want
I'm
to
curious.
like, oh, sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
I was curious, like maybe we should flip over to your interview discussion guide and look through what you all have written.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, I'm curious then, Katie, like when you did your research, like how did the CI/CD kind of goal came up, or how did you know that they were all trying to do this thing and having problems with it?
So they naturally, I basically let them have free reign and just see what they did. And CI/CD is a really like big reason why people use GitLab. So a lot of them went there on their own, but they weren't actually setting up a real pipeline that actually did something. They were just committing some nonsense in the pipeline just to see what happened when they type some stuff and press buttons. Or they were just diving into the
Hmm.
docs. So they were exploring it in a certain kind of way. So that could be possible for your session. But I guess like onboarding as in like at the end of your session, they have run a real pipeline in GitLab that I don't think it's probably realistic. Or that would have to be your entire session.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. I feel like that really helps us kind of shift a little bit from what we were thinking. I guess our main worry was that if we go into it giving all of the like free exploring task, in the end, what if we don't get like data that shows some kind of common problem that's specific enough to propose design opportunities? Like, what if it's still like platform level problems that will be hard to actually like propose a solution for? What if it's not specific enough?
Hmm.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some way that you could like isolate the pain points by giving them like the thing that I observed is that people don't have a good orientation of where they are in the application or where to find things.
Hmm.
So perhaps you could still have tasks, but simpler task, which is after they've done some free exploration, you could say like, you want to do like invite someone or configure this setting. Show me where you'd go in the application to do that to see if they have trouble understanding where they are in the application or some kind of task that's a little bit like that could be completed in a minute or two, and you could have a couple of those. So you have some more structured data. But I'm curious what other people think, especially the UX research people.
I mean, I think if you're focusing on the developer personality, and you ask them questions about what their work activities are. Um, if kind of I think the overall scenario here is like you're a developer who's been invited to your team's GitLab project, and you need to figure out what to do to start doing your job activities. Does that mean that the way you want to do this is that you invite the participant and assign them on an issue? And then kind of your script can be like, like you just joined this company, they use GitLab. You've been assigned on like the first issue you're going to work on. So I've sent you the invite link. Like, can you try to onboard and start working on that issue and kind of give them basically kind of that level of information. Like, don't tell them kind of more than that, but it kind of makes it clear to them that like there's a goal they need to achieve and then see how they get to it.
Yeah, I think that sounds a little more promising than just having them free explore with kind of no guidance at all.
Yeah. Yeah, because then that sets up a situation where they have they have kind of a what we call a job to be done, right? Like they have a goal they want to try to get to. This is basically like game design, right? Is like the goal of the level is like start working on that issue, whatever that means to you. So then they have to sign in, they have to go through the sign in flow, and then they land on like, the user home dashboard and they have to figure out how to get to that issue they're assigned on, all that sort of thing. So you kind of see how far along that path they get, and hopefully, not hopefully, you ask them to like talk out loud about what they're experiencing as they go through it and all that sort of thing.
I think that also sounds quite realistic in terms of how employees are onboarded into teams using GitLab. Yeah. On that note, Kate, I was wondering if we have some text that our UX researchers use at the start of interviews that says like, please think aloud and these kinds of instructions. Think we can uh, paste that in the introduction part here.
Yeah, we have some discussion guide templates, so I can copy and paste them. Essentially, they kind of go over that, think out loud. We will be recording if at any point you're uncomfortable, etc., etc. Um, on the topic of recording, just a note for y'all that I mentioned to Chad, if you are in an interview and you feel that this participant has lied and they are not who they said they are, and they absolutely do not work in software development or things like that, you do have the power to end that interview early. It can feel a little bit uncomfortable on your side. Just be polite and courteous, end the interview. We will flag them in the user interviews platform, um, and we will then replace that participant with another one. Do not feel that you have to get to the end of the session with a participant who is not giving you anything usable. It will just waste your time. They're just going to be you doing it for an incentive because we do have that a lot at the moment. There's a lot of scam participants in the mix. Um, so just know that you do have that power to actually end the sessions if you need to, or if they are being really obnoxious and rude, anything like that, just cut the session and let us know.
And as someone who has a bit of a people pleaser personality and doesn't feel comfortable all the time doing this kind of thing, a pro tip is if you do need to do that, you can they don't know what your script is. You can say, okay, great. Well, that's actually everything we needed to cover today. Thank you so much, blah blah blah, and just wrap it up. And they don't know that like you were only halfway through or a quarter through or whatever. So you don't have to be like, actually, this isn't working. Like, if you don't want to risk any kind of confrontation, you can just say, well, that was the natural end of this thing. Great. Here we go. We're all done. We'll wrap up. Thanks.
Those are really good advice.
Is there an opportunity to show the students like a sample interview that we have?
That's a great point. Do you mean a recording?
Yeah, just like a recording that we could share with them. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a single one, just so that they have like a baseline for like how a typical um, user interview goes. And so it just gives them a starting kickoff point.
That's a really good recommendation. Yeah, Katie, are there any from, because we're modeling a lot of this kind of on those interviews that you did, are there any from that you think were like that one went perfectly kind of?
I can have a look through Dovetail. I did invite the students to Dovetail, but I wasn't sure if it was going to work. But otherwise, I could export the best one and just put it in Slack.
Yeah, I think I was on Dovetail and it seemed like I could click into the videos.
Okay. But yeah, you don't have to watch all of this. I'll have a look and I'll try to remember which one is maybe like if you only want to watch one, which one was the best.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. So in terms of our guide right now, I think that we could probably just take out the task analysis part. It seemed no longer relevant looking at the approach that we're taking right now. Um,
Well, the task analysis is kind of well, that's sort of what we were just talking about, right? It's like the
The
task is
task is just
go get to
switched.
this. Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah.
It's maybe the free exploration part is not necessary. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe free exploration is just not quite the right description for it. Because like you do want them to receive the invite, tell you what they thought about it, click on the link, log in. And I think it's generally good to ask them, what do you think is the most important for you to understand in your onboarding, just in kind of to get a sense of what their expectations are. So yeah, maybe it's just that like the task analysis is slightly different task.
Okay.
Yeah, like if you go with Chad's example, which I actually think is a really good one, one task could be like, you know, your new manager like wants you to join GitLab and they say they have an issue assigned to you in GitLab, find that issue. And then if and when they find it, the next task could be, how would you get started on this issue? Like what would your next step be?
Okay.
I think also like you're looking at this on paper and it can be really confusing, especially when you don't have experience with GitLab, because we've all seen like it's a confusing platform to get started on. Um, Even with that lack of experience, what I would do is as a group, just role play that scenario, send the invite and click through. It'll also probably make you a little bit more comfortable in the interview itself because you've kind of gone through it. You've seen where people have been clicking around. Um, but it will give you a good idea of other folks who have never used GitLab. Yes, they might have developer backgrounds, but it'll kind of show you what to expect and it might help you with your interview guide a little bit and might also help you a little bit with figuring out how long do some of these pieces take so that you can time what's possible in your interview and what's not.
Yeah, we'll definitely pilot this before we actually do the interviews and also set up the GitLab environment. So we'll have to figure out how to assign an issue to someone now too.
Yeah, I think, for example, also asking them if they can figure out like in what project and group that issue is, because I think this is usually a part that's not so clear, or it would help them understand the project and group hierarchies.
Hmm.
Maybe creating an issue in a specific project or related to another issue. So just so they understand, yeah, how projects and groups work. Um, Yeah. Or maybe saying, okay, now you're part of GitLab. Can you see your team members, like other group members, things like that?
Yeah, that is a good one. Because maybe also like assuming that they get there, right? Assuming that they get to the issue they're assigned to, just asking them some kind of question that's like, do you understand how this is structured? Like where this issue is kind of thing, just to see kind of how much they're understanding about that hierarchy stuff. Might Yeah. Although maybe actually, to Lorena's point, maybe giving them a task, if they get to that point, is a better way of getting that information. Yeah, 30 minutes is so, because like 30 minutes is actually 20 minutes.
Hmm.
There's a lot of like, there just will be faffing around, especially if you're like sending them an email, then they have to check their email and they have to click on a thing.
You might also want to have some time limits on each of these sections
Hmm.
in the interviews, especially the initial section where you ask, tell us about your role, background. That takes up a lot of time. People talk and then um, so two tips. One, you can already tell them upfront that, hey, we are on a tight timeline and there are certain tasks we want to get to. So I might interrupt you if I think I have enough information, or, you can already say that maybe it feels rude, but that's not our intention, so that you clarify that. Um, and really make sure that you at least finish one task in the interview. Um, Again, and then depends on what is your priority. So if you feel that you're getting enough information about one task, then maybe you can speed up and go to the other task, but it's going to be tight. I was wondering if it might be helpful for them, Chad, maybe Kate, to do the pilot with one of our GitLab team members.
Mm.
It's a bit artificial, but at least that'll help in clarifying, like if they don't figure out some aspects of which buttons to click, what to do, technical hiccups.
Hmm.
uh, Maybe we can ask one of our engineering team members or a front-end engineer to be a pilot participant.
I think we could totally do that. I think also, if I create a project for you all to use about this, then I will invite you as maintainers on the project. And then you, the four of you students, can also run yourself through this when you
Yeah.
receive that invite email from me to that project.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
And if you do that, so both of them, like if one of our colleagues will run through this with you, and if you do it yourself, I would recommend recording it.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. I think then we will run through the invitation by ourselves and sort of try to find are you thinking of also simulating the issues when you're inviting us to? Or would that be
So
possible?
yeah, I think that maybe what I will do is I'll create this project and I will invite all of you and I'll just assign the four of you on the same issue. And then you'll get the email invite and then go try to find that issue and do something about it.
Okay.
You might want to invite them to rather a top level group chat because that's a bit more, or like to a group because that's a bit more like realistic too. As a new software engineer starting an organization, I'm not invited to a single project. I'm invited to.
Yeah. Sorry, the reason that I paused there is that I'm thinking about the fact that you're going to be. Is there going to be any problem with the fact that you're inviting these people who are strangers and shouldn't know each other or see each other's contact information to the same group?
When I did this on production, I would just delete as soon as the session was over.
That
I would
makes
just
sense.
boot the user
Yeah.
out.
That's maybe something that you should put in your interview script as like a follow-up for yourself after the interview, is like kind of like cleaning up the test conditions, like go in and like remove that user so they don't have access anymore.
Yeah. And I think after we run through your invitation by ourselves, we can set up an environment similar to that, or depending on how that went, we can set up our own environment and then maybe pilot it with one of the GitLab engineers.
Mhm.
With all of these changes that you're now going through, you might want to revisit the participants that you have said yes to. I imagine they're still going to be fine, the ones that you have picked. Um, but it's just something to think about now with moving forward. Do you really want them to have absolutely never used GitLab, or are you fine with that slight familiarity where they've used it for a few months? Because it will be like they might have already gone through the workflow that you're trying to get them to do. So if that's the case, I can open up another project looking for people who have absolutely never used GitLab before, and we can invite them in addition to these ones. Um, but just something for y'all to think about as a group, um, deciding who you want to speak to.
I think with the list we have right now, we could prioritize people who said I've never used GitLab before on top of these four that we already picked out.
Well, the availability is set so that they could basically book any time with, because I think the dates you gave were from like the 26th to the 6th or 13th or something. So I would advise that we wait to click invite until you're more set on the interview discussion guide and have run that pilot. So I can potentially invite them, but remove a few of the days of availability you gave. But it does put you on like quite a timeline in case they book that first session that's available, once, say it's next Tuesday or Wednesday and they book that first session, does mean you'd have to be ready by that time. Um, so also just something to think about and let us know how you want to proceed.
Yeah, if I went in and approved one of these people right now, they might book for 5 minutes from now to talk to you because I think 9 a.m. today is the start of your availability block in there.
Yes. I did put in a 24-hour buffer, so they have to give
Oh, that's
24
good.
hours notice just in case, because we've had that situation in the past. And because it's multiple calendars, I wanted to make sure it was seen. But it still means that they could book for 9 a.m. tomorrow. So I don't think it'd be feasible.
Yeah, I think maybe taking away some of our initially blocked days would be helpful in this case. But I guess also we don't want to start it too late. We blocked until the 13th as kind of like the last possible day that we could have these interview done by because that will take us into spring break already.
Mhm.
And we were also thinking of having like the journey maps and like user personas done before spring break as well. As well as like affinity mapping of their pain points. So we probably have to have most of it done ideally before the end of that week. Or
Yeah,
like by our
if
last
you
check-in before break.
if you all have some time to solidify your interview guide in like the next couple of days, like I could create that project and invite you to it today.
Okay.
And then we can find, one or two colleagues of ours to like be a pilot for you if you're ready for that. So that we don't have to delay on that. You know what I mean? You can have your interview guide in kind of a looser state while you're experimenting with that. Um, but if you're able to get it kind of in a good state, maybe by like end of day tomorrow, then we could go in and approve people and, maybe they book for Monday, but you're ready for that?
When would potentially the pilot test with the GitLab engineer happen?
I mean, I don't know. We haven't talked to anybody yet, but you know, I guess kind of as probably as soon as you're ready for it, like I can find someone who's like in the same time zone as us, or who's maybe on the like American West Coast if that makes it easier for you because it could be later in the day. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think we have more flexibility with that, and there's like less it's less necessary to like have it like finalized before you do that, because you're kind of doing that to learn a bit about and refine your interview guide.
Yeah, okay. So I think we can go through the invitation ourselves and then finalize on the interview guide. And we'll let you know when we're ready for the pilot test. But also let us know like when someone's available or what would be the most ideal time for them.
Sure.
And for the pilot test, I guess the four of us could just hop on together and run a single session.
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess I'll set the expectation with them that like they don't need to do any prep and it'll be 30 minutes and that you're kind of working out an interview guide and they just kind of want to practice it on you.
Yeah, sounds good. So for the spreadsheet, should we just say like we could move the I've never used GitLab people as priorities as of now?
Sure. I think in that case you would have most of them, right? I don't remember. I think we looked.
Yeah. It gives us nine, I think.
Okay. Yeah, and if your target is to talk to eight, you've still got some other ones who you could talk to as well. Um, so maybe those nine are the ones you start with. Cool. Okay, we are at time. We have some follow-ups from this. I'm going to create a project and invite the four of you to it. You can kind of test out your script on yourself with that. I'm also going to try to find an engineering colleague of ours who will go through this process with you, and I'll connect you to them in the Slack channel. It sounds like you have some refinement to do on your interview guide. And we're gonna hold off on going in and approving these people who you've marked as should interview until you're like set on it so that they don't accidentally book too soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then also if possible to get a recommendation for like which user interview from Dovetail to look at,
Oh,
that would be great
Thank you.
as
Yeah.
like a
Yes,
sample.
will do.
Oh, and then also, yeah, another follow-up on that. Kate, if there is some like good kind of boilerplate start of the interview spiel language that they could use.
Yes, I am actively writing a message for Slack. I don't have access to the interview guide anymore, but I will just copy and paste into Slack for now. So this way y'all have it.
Great. Thanks. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Yay.
you.